Rush was our rarefied mystical music textbook, Neil and his wordsmithing challenging our brains at the same time. I'm sure for a long time we thought Geddy was scribbling all these fortune cookies. Rush made you want to excel in a bunch of levels at once, and I swear that was their purpose for high school kids worried about what comes next. Geez, man, they were perfect. Prog rock proper was too creepy. Tales from topographic oceans may have well been the Moonies coming to get you. At the other end, all our metal bands, Sabbath, Purple, Nazareth, Rainbow, UFO, Thin Lizzy, Kiss, Aerosmith, The Nuge, and at the obscure end, Legs Diamond, Riot, Angel, Stars, Moxie, and Tease were friggin' all right with us. But Rush made you try harder. They politely asked to pour your energies into something more positive. Eat right. Use those weights in the basement. Neil was pushing the philosophy and literature at one end, and as players, man, what they did for kids' self-esteem is immeasurable. We had a purpose, a hobby that was a never-ending hard nut to crack. And yet I gotta say something about Rush. They made it just this side of attainable. I think if we'd got the slide rules out and did the math on Close to the Edge, The Inner Mountain Flame, Asia, Red, Brand X, or Buddy Rich, we'd have all hung it up. But Neil, with his regular rolls down those tuned toms, more often than not, building his beats with only one of his two bass drums, much of what Rush did, well, you could get there as a kid. I could get there as a kid. That's a personal reminiscence of Rush in the 70s, to be sure. But from what I've gathered from friends all over the world, admittedly most of them white men in their mid-50s, it's a near universal experience. I want to tell you a bit about the history of this book. As you may be aware, this is my fourth Rush book, following Contents Under Pressure, 30 years of Rush at home and away, Rush, the Illustrated History, and Rush, album by album. And since those, there have been a number of interesting developments that made me want to write this one. To start, only one of those three books, Contents, was a traditional biography, an authorized one at that. But it was quite short, and given that it came out in 2004 before Rush was officially retired, it was in need of an update. I thought about it, but I wasn't feeling it, not without some vigorous additions. That, fortunately, took care of itself. In the early 2010s, I found myself working with Sam Dunn and Scott McFadden at Banger Films on the award-winning documentary Rush, Beyond the Lighted Stage. Anybody who works in docs will tell you that between the different speakers and non-talk footage that has to get into what might end up a 90-minute film, only a tiny percentage of the interview footage ever gets used. The rest just sits in archive, rarely seen or heard by anyone. Long and short of it, I arranged to use that archive, along with more interviews I'd done over the years, plus the odd quote from the available press to get this book to the point where I felt it was bringing something new and significant to the table of Rush books. So there you have it. Thanks in large part to those guys, as well as the kind consent of Peggy Ciccone at the Rush office, the book you're listening to right now more than ably supplants Contents Under Pressure, and stands as the most strident and detailed analysis of the early Rush catalog in existence. Martin Popoff. Chapter 1. Early Years. We didn't have a mic stand, so we used a lamp. No question that the Beatles were and still remain the patron saints of rock and roll. And February 9th, 1964, the first of the band's 3 consecutive appearances on The Ed Sullivan Show, would provide the nexus of that sainthood. That night, the Beatles inspired myriad adolescents to take up the rock and roll cause, including the heroes of our story. But if you wanted to drill down, get more hardcore, and find out who might be patron saints of playing, it wouldn't be out of line to bestow that title upon those heroes, Geddy Lee, Alex Lifeson, and Neil Peart, and their Canuck collective called Rush. Of course, Neil, the professor, chuckling through his Canadian modesty, would deem that premise absurd, citing the likes of his personal saints of playing